Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast lovers. Welcome to episode 189 of the Shipping Podcast. Whoever you are, wherever you are, thank you for tuning in. This is where we talk about the coolest industry on the planet and help raise the maritime industry's profile. This is a solo episode. I'm on my own. It was a long time ago since I had a conversation with you, and I felt the need to give you a few thoughts from my heart. I have had so many exciting guests on the podcast this year. They have shared so many great insights and have opened up, for which I'm very grateful. A recurrent topic has been the war in Ukraine and what impact they can see on the rest of the world. Almost everyone I spoke to has brought up the situation for seafarers, first during the pandemic and now during the war. I don't think we can even begin to imagine the ordeals that they have been going through and the need for declaring seafarers as key workers. If you have any way to speak up on behalf of seafarers to your government, don't hesitate. On June 25th, the Day of the Seafarer, there is always the possibility to stand up and make a difference. As you know, I am a tech nerd with some blue blood in my veins. So I have taken the opportunity to speak with some people working with new ideas and the innovations going on in our industry. I talked to Joshua Berger in Seattle and to Lotte Lundberg in Copenhagen. They willingly shared what they had at the top of their agenda. And oh boy, don't we live in exciting times now. Don't miss out on those episodes. But one thought I got when listening back on episodes 185 and 186 is that they are working to solve the same problems. And they are both funded by their communities and or governments in their respective countries where they live. Aren't the challenges we have global? So why is there so little collaboration between the maritime incubators and accelerators? I can see the benefits of working locally. But where does the global organizations fit in here? How can they help? Since I started the Shipping Podcast almost 7 years ago, I have recorded 189 episodes. Some of them solo, but at least 175 different guests have been invited to speak about their passion for the maritime industry and what they do in their everyday job. It has been an exciting journey to start up a new media channel and fill it with practically anything that I fancy. I will be doing a Jubilee episode of some sort later this summer, but there is something on my chest that I cannot wait to share. 7 years ago, we had the maritime conferences to go to. The big five, such as North Shipping, Posidonia, SMM, CMA, and Marine Money. We had the newspapers that just went online, and we had our business contacts. But there was no maritime podcast in this maritime space. That's why I started the Shipping Podcast. No one else had that idea. And I decided to learn the craft of producing a podcast. I spent the 2 first years just teaching people how to listen to a podcast, why to listen to a podcast, and the benefits of participating as a guest on a podcast. I traveled around with my microphones to these maritime conferences I mentioned before, and a few more. I asked the people I listened to as keynote speakers if they wanted to have a recorded chat with me that I could share with a larger audience, and most of them did. You wouldn't believe what you are allowed to when armed with a microphone. Long story told, the media landscape was so different then. But the conferences are still the same. During the long time we have spent isolated at home during the pandemic, I have listened to and participated in many online meetings discussing the new normal. What would our world look like once we started to go to the office again? How would we meet? Would it be hybrid meetings, or would people go back to meeting physically? There were surveys and reports on how the entire working space would change, and that not every day would be spent in the office now when people had got used to working from home. Things would really change. And then I see online that the maritime conferences have started again. And they all look the same. Masses of people in exhibition halls discussing the maritime industry's challenges. The same as we do here. When I saw everything going back to what it was before the pandemic, and before the changes that I have seen starting up, I almost gave in. I don't want to say that I have seen it all, been there, bought the t-shirt. I don't want to sound like Statler and Waldorf in the Muppet Show. But I must say this. What happened with the new reality, the new normal, when it comes to maritime conferences? For those of you that subscribe to my newsletter that I release every other Friday, if you haven't signed up, you can go to shippingpodcast.com and sign up. But you who subscribe know that I've been really upset about a maritime conference gathering a lot of interest in my backyard that had a speaker lineup of 52 speakers for 2 days. All the speakers were men. As I don't get much energy from attending the same old, I was very excited when invited to a mesh party. I had no idea what a mesh party is, probably showing my age, but I had to Google it. Still, it was a startup company that has taken electric vehicles seriously and is working to solve all problems involved in road transport, and they invited me to this mesh party. A mesh party is a place for weirdos, said the company's CEO. Welcome to you who share our vision that there is another way of doing things and wants to join our community. This was music to my ears. They are tackling the problem with capital tied up in poor administration and lack of transparency for their customers. Does it sound familiar? The entire vibe around this meeting was full of possibilities. I met so many positive people, and I got inspired by the speakers invited. It was a mix of ages, gender, and messages. Very, very inspiring. I listened, and I learned something new. And the takeaway was that partnership is the new leadership. And that made me go home with a smile on my face. It's these kind of meetings that we need in the maritime industry. We need to understand the message we send and take responsibility for that if we continue like we always have done. I know that it's easier to invite people to you, and you are not an organizer of an event and don't need to sell tickets. But for how long will those tickets continue to sell? And for how long will it be possible to withhold a good brand when you continue to sponsor events without any female speakers? I know I can be upset in my corner of the world. I can continue to be baffled by the companies that don't understand the power of supporting those who want the change. And yes, I confess that I am disappointed that no company has supported the Shipping Podcast in the way needed to spread the good word further. And that large shipping companies have asked me to promote their own podcasts for free. But that hasn't stopped me for the last 7 years since I believe in what I'm doing. And 250 people listen every day to what I have to say. I just want things to change. I want everyone to feel as excited as I did when I came home from that mesh party. That is my goal with this episode. I want you to stop and think. As I plan the coming episodes, I see that many media agents have realized the opportunity for free advertising and are promoting their clients to me as a guest on the Shipping Podcast. I think you might be interested in listening to them, but many of them are more interested in marketing a product or a company, and I'm not sure that that is what you want. If you have any suggestions for a guest you want to listen to, or you have any other offers, maybe you want to advertise here where the new ideas and the future are discussed, please drop me a line at hello@shippingpodcast.com. I have to go now. More interviews to do and some weirdos to gather. There will be a newsletter next Friday and a new episode of the Shipping Podcast the Friday after that. Meanwhile, take care. From me to you, over and out.